All right, well, we will go ahead and get the Farragut Visual Resources Review Board. We'll call the meeting to order for February. So first on the agenda tonight, we have the approval of the minutes from the January meeting. Are there any comments or questions?
I have none.
All right, do we have an approval?
I'll move to approve the minutes as posted.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. And we have a couple people here with us tonight. I know we have Gary Hayes with Coldwell Banker and McDonald's. Okay. All right. Well, we'll skip ahead to McDonald's and we'll then go to Coldwell Banker and then we'll come back to the other items. All right. So let's, number 3, the ground sign for McDonald's.
Okay. This is a ground sign for the McDonald's restaurant that's located at 11205 Kingston Pike. They are looking to put a new ground sign in as part of a larger redevelopment they're doing on that site. They're going to be redoing the entire building facade, making some interior changes, and also some site changes to that site. The property is located in the town's mixed-use town center planning area, so there's a heightened sense of architectural compatibility there. The sign that they're proposing is going to have an internally lit golden arches, and it'll be on a solid red aluminum background panel that will not be lit, so only the arches will actually be lit. And the brick base is going to match the building facade, so that color brick is a little off, and I've got a picture here that that shows the actual architectural renderings for what the building facade's going to look like, and that is here. It's going to be a much darker building. It's going to be darker brick tones, some darker and lighter grays in there as well. So one of the things that the board needs to look at tonight is whether or not the red background, if you feel that is compatible with the architectural facade in terms of the color scheme. Under the adopted architectural design standards, it calls for coordinated design and materials between the sign and the site building, and then also complementary color use between the sign and the building facade. So they are going to be using brick to match on the base, and so really the issue that y'all have to consider is whether or not you feel that the color scheme on the sign is compatible with the building itself. And so I did have this color rendering of the architectural facade that's going to be put on the building as part of the redevelopment. Some of the things that you could consider is whether or not they should use the red background, or they should just carry the brick all the way up or use another material from the building. Here's an example of some other McDonald's that are using things more off the building type material. Here's our adopted color palette. That's another thing you could look at, although they might not want to change the red because I'm sure it's a McDonald's red. Here's a picture of what the sign will look like, kind of lit. The sign company took this picture. I think it's over somewhere in Blount County. It's a little deceptive, I think, because there's a lot of site lighting on that, so you can't really. It sort of looks like the red is lit up a bit, but I think that's just external lighting that's being picked up from the site around it. But really, only the golden arches are lit.
So Bart, I think my first question would be, what does the signage on the front of the building look like?
Okay, I didn't put that in because they've not actually got the permit approved for that yet, but what they are proposing to do is, just so you know, Right now, they're going to just put the golden arches up here on that gray component. That's all they're allowed right now. If the sign regulations that, the committee's been working on, if they're adopted as proposed, it'll probably also open up the ability to put the golden arches over here on the east side as well. So they're just going to put the arches up. At one point, they were going to put the word McDonald's over in here, sort of across the face, but they didn't have room for all of that. So in terms of our area requirements, so they're just going to put, the arches up on both.
Got it.
As long as the bricks match, I personally like it. I think the red is great, it draws your eye. If the end is illuminated, you're gonna see that. And it's easily read, I don't see any problem with it.
Have a representative from McDonald's come to the podium so we can ask them some questions.
Sure.
Hi, John Farris. I'm the owner-operator of the McDonald's in town. I live
Give
in...
us your home address, please.
I live at 1000 Bridgestone Place, Knoxville, Tennessee.
Thank you.
And I have with me Bill Doctor, who is the owner of the sign company, so I'll let Bill talk about the permits and do stuff.
Basically, that's, the sign does not illuminate the arch. It's internally lit. It's LED. The brick will match, as you said. The thing that Mr. Ferris is most concerned with is visibility. And he's taken down his 50-foot sign that's been there since 1984, because I put that sign up. But in losing that, he's losing a ton of visibility. And at present, we can't even put a logo arch on the east side with current regulations. Yeah. So we're concerned about visibility. That's
Questions for you. How far away is this ground sign from your property line?
okay. It's pushed way back up toward the building.
Footage, how many feet?
I'd have to have a plan with me to see that, but I'm sure we probably do have that.
It'll be in the grass area in front
Right.
of the building right
But
now.
the reason I ask is the current sign ordinance and the proposed sign ordinance are pretty much the same. And if your sign has to be at least 20 feet from your property line,
It is.
and for every foot you go back, you get additional space. So if it's 20 feet back, you're allowed 20 square feet. And this is 16 square feet. It's 4 by 4. So this is smaller than what you're allowed if it's 20 feet back. If your sign is further than 20 feet back, it could even be a bigger ground sign.
There's a mitigating factor too of a floodplain, okay? So we gotta be out of that as well. So we're well back of the 20-foot.
I don't want you to move it right now. Oh, well, I see what you're saying. The bigger the sign, you're going to have to, but could it be closer to the building?
Well, we sacrifice a lot of visibility the more we move to the building.
Okay. Well, I mean, if you want a bigger sign, but if you're going to lose visibility, I can see the trade-off may not be good for you, but I just want you to know what your options are.
Yes, sir, I understand. Again, we're dealing with a floodplain there, and by getting out of it and moving back, we're well past the 20-foot setback.
Wait a minute.
It's nowhere close to where the existing sign is.
Yeah, he's fine where it's located.
I know he's fine where it's located. I'm just trying to,
You were trying to give him more sign.
What
I'm
he's
trying to get
saying
you more
is you
square
could
footage.
get more
well,
signage.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, you're good. Bigger sign if you want.
I want as big as we can get.
I'm trying to tell you how you can get it. If
Right. Well,
that's,
I know, but there's a trade-off in the distance as well. But what you're saying is if we're more than 20 feet from the property line, we can increase the size of the sign. Right. Okay.
I was
The
just
only-
waiting on somebody else to chime in, but I like it. And here's why I like it. First of all, we know the brick's going to match, but the building itself has those earth tones, muted colors kind of thing, okay? This sign, as small as it would be, is still going to pop off there. And you're still going to get your visibility. that's why I asked what other colors were on that building. If the arches are the only thing on this building, I think the red sign's really going to grab you. So,
I also think just seeing the differences in the examples of what's lit up, knowing how far back from Kingston Pike, the bridge, how tall it is right there on the sign, to your point, the visibility.
See here where,
With only the lighted arches and the difference in sign height, I think it would be just enough lighting on it to draw in the attention versus having externally lit if you did a full brick sign with just the golden arches. I think and I think it looks nice. I don't think that internally lit red backing sign,
yeah.
I think it
The
does
sign
pop,
that-
but
the
it's
sign that
nice.
he had an example of is actually in Maryville.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
At the corner of 321 and Foothills Mall Drive. And, you know, it's okay. I mean, I want a 50-foot sign, okay? But as far as knowing what it is, and they have the same kind of earth tones there. So, I mean, if you guys want to go look what we're talking about, they actually have the sign on the front of the building that says McDonald's as well. But as far as what it blends in like, it makes a very handsome renovation.
We're taking off all the roof beams. Right now, there's the yellow roof beams on the building. They all go away. There's a red roof, but that goes away. You can see from the picture. So our visibility is reduced quite a bit. And I appreciate the comments about further back, and I'm not sure, after 20 feet, you get to increase it by a foot.
The function of how many feet it is, sir?
For each foot you go back, what is it?
It is, but at the same time, under the architectural design standards, then we'd have to start, considering whether or not the sign was going to, its scale relative to the building with it pushed back towards the building. So that would be another design consideration that then you'd have to consider, because, the standards do call for, the design to sort of emphasize rather than overshadow the building features. So, with this being the front facade, it's a small front area of the building, and the larger, this is the front facade there. So the larger that sign were to get, and it being located fairly close to the building, then we'd have to start evaluating it from the standpoint of whether it would start sort of overwhelming the building facade.
My question is, if you go back 2 feet, you gain another 4 square feet. So instead of 16 feet, you can currently have 20 feet, but you got it at 16 square feet. If you go back 2 feet, you could expand it to 24 square feet. I don't know if you can go back 2 feet. I'm just making sure you understand what your options are.
Well, there you can see where it's going to be.
Well, I can't tell how many feet that
So
is.
how far back from the floodplain does it have to be?
Well,
I know we don't have measurements here,
they're going to locate it outside of the floodplain just from a standpoint of, having to floodproof it and do that sort of thing. I mean, they're located fine, but, they didn't really have room to locate it up along the roadway there. Well, first of all, they don't front on Kingston Pike. They only
Right.
front on that access easement. And so, here's the actual property line.
Okay, there's property.
Okay.
Now, show where the
Yeah.
edge of the sign is.
The sign's going to be right up in here in
Okay.
this island.
So from there to the property line, do you know how many feet that is?
Not without a plan, Andy, I'm sorry.
It's at least, I'd say at least 30 to 40 feet.
Yeah, I think it's in the neighborhood of 30.
But it's going to be back there close to the building wall where, where they're locating it, because they can't really locate it and meet any of the setbacks up along through here. And plus, they're in the flood zone up in here. So, if you put a very large sign up along that building facade, now you're taking away from the building facade. And that would have to be evaluated by y'all.
Can you make it larger coming out towards the median, like towards the floodplain? Or is there setbacks from the floodplain that it has to be like that line?
No, they could move it this way if they wanted to.
2 feet?
So if it goes bigger, you could add the 2 feet on towards that way.
I mean, they can pull it forward of where it is if they
Right.
chose to. I think that's where they chose to put it, though.
So the
right now,
maximum,
you've got a 4-foot by 4-foot sign, and all I'm saying is you could go 5-foot by 5-foot or something. If another foot might help you, it's not gonna be humongous. I know the concern.
Well, I'm sorry, I don't have a plan and a scale with you. It's specifically. But we're probably in the 30 to 35 foot range back right there from the property.
is
like
the
to hear
maximum amount?
I'd like to hear from some of the other members of the,
Not really. At this point, I can tell you that McDonald's is so popular, nobody in Farragut's going to have a problem finding it, even if you
True.
didn't have a sign there. Now, people not in the area would feel differently, but if you're happy with it and you're ready to have it approved, I mean, you have the option of making it larger, but it sounds like you've pretty well got it where you want it as far as all the regulations and everything.
What we've tried to do is be congruent with your regulations.
Okay. Okay.
And what you're telling me about possibly making it bigger relative to moving back from the 20 feet, I haven't heard that before.
Well,
But, we can coordinate all that relative to,
What is the maximum size that the sign can be? Is it 5 by 5, or it could be larger than that?
It could be larger than that, but again, if it gets much larger than it is, it'll have to come back here and it'll have to be scaled against the front of the building
Got it.
to see
Well-
what it's going to look
one
like.
of those signs, as a matter of fact, the sign that we looked at in Maryville is 7 by 7. So, I mean, it's a little bigger, okay? Obviously, they have this sign in different options, if you know what I'm saying. But that one's, now, by the same token, that sign is viewed from, 45 feet. That's why we were given that size, because it's not right up next to the road or anything. It's
Yeah.
kind of, quite frankly, I wish we could do that here. But again, it will warrant measuring and calculating. But what we're really concerned about more than anything else is red okay.
I think red's great. I don't have a
determine
problem
it.
with the red.
I think it's rare that this board ever tries to make a sign larger. And I appreciate Ron doing that.
you're looking at a guy that goes back for 35 years of retail.
Well, I do, and Ron, he makes a great point. You do have that option, but if it's going to be an issue, I think we should just get our discussion out of the way and.
Yeah, I mean, if they want to redesign it and bring it back at another meeting, they can. But, if you could approve it tonight, subject to the couple of items that would be remaining. And then if they want to design a larger sign, but at that point, I think they're going to have to show a scale drawing against the building facade to make sure that it meets the architectural design standards.
And if we
Kim?
do that, I appreciate that, is the red okay? And that was our concern. Someone said there was a question on the red. So
Problem with the red?
Problem with the red.
so we can show the sign with the new red, if it's
Yeah.
a 5 by 5 or 6 by 6. Okay. That was our really concern.
Again, I think if they enlarge the sign and bring it back, then you'll have to evaluate it in its
Right.
entirety, because, red at this size relative, but if it's twice the size of what it is now,
It won't be twice the size.
that might be quite,
I wish it would be, but it's not going to be twice the size.
quite a bit
Exactly. I
different
think
in terms of the architectural design standards.
And plus, it's not gonna be broad to the front of the building, it's gonna be narrow to the front of the building, if you know what I'm saying. Perpendicular. Exactly. So, I mean, whatever it is, it's gonna be that wide, as you set to the front of the building.
So it's
if
rather,
we-
I guess it's a question of if you want to look at, it's 2 more feet, it's the most you can go.
Well, no, they could,
Well-
they could put quite a larger sign up there, depending on how far their setback is, yeah.
Even larger than 7 feet.
Well, I would possibly suggest we just approve as is, and if these guys want to come back,
Yeah.
right,
The process.
with the
twos. Right,
are listed here.
Okay.
yeah, that's what I was going to ask.
So,
All
I
right,
mean, that's fine, and we'll discuss that with McDonald's and everybody, and if it's decided that we want to go that way, we'll come back before we do.
As long as we know we can present you a sign with the backlit and red, then we can go back to the drawing board and measure it. So obviously, if we go too far back, even though we can make a twice the size of the sign, if we could, it wouldn't be any beneficial to us because you wouldn't be able to see it. So we want to get the optimize the size of the sign without going overboard, obviously, for the area. And if we can't see it, it's not worth making it any larger. So now if we
And it
have
may bring
permission.
up a different conversation rather than just the red background.
Yeah.
If it
I,
is too
I think the
large.
biggest sign you could have would be 6 by 6. That's the biggest.
And that sign
For
is
scale.
available in that size. So we may try to permit that, using the, you know,
The setbacks.
formula that you give me. We can get 20 feet from the property line and then measure back that much more, maybe we can get to a 6 by 6.
Okay,
Sounds good.
all right. Are there any other questions or comments?
What are there subject twos on this?
Yeah, there are a
already?
couple, and I actually, they were going to make some revisions to the plan, but, you know, not knowing whether or not you were going to ask for design changes, I asked them to hold off because I didn't see any reason for them to be, you know, revising it and then revising it again. So basically, we need to just get some detail put on the plan regarding the site, the lighting, you know, just so we actually have it on the plan sheets on how the sign's going to be lit. And then also just to, you know, put a clarifying note on that, you know, that the entire sign cabinet, both the face and the frame is going to be solid aluminum, and it's not going to be translucent. And that's really it. And as part of the permit, we'll be getting an as-built, but they'll have to do that for the entire site, so we'll just pick up the as-built at that point.
Okay.
It's an aluminum panel, it's not translucent. The face is yellow. It's a Lexan face, so light does travel through it.
It's
LED
LED.
light internally.
Yeah. The arches, but, you know, when I was talking to someone at the company, I was just going to have them clarify that the aluminum cabinet included both the faceplate and the frame, just so we, you know, didn't have anything that,
It's all the
yeah.
same.
We don't want to, it doesn't look that nice if you have white light shining through the box.
It was just
So
an
we want
editorial
solid, it'll be
thing on the,
enclosed. And again, we're doing LED in the whole store. I'm redoing all my lights inside, outside lights, everything we can, LED.
And in that picture that I showed you from Maryville, the red that you see on that panel is ambient light from the lot lighting on the side. you know,
Yeah.
So it's just reflected ambient light from the lot lights there.
like, just a couple of clarifying notes we wanted put on the plan sheets, just for permitting purposes.
And
That's
just
all.
one more question based on this picture. They don't have numbers on the top of this one where our plans have numbers on the top. Will that be connected, or is that an additional panel that will be placed on top? And is it the same material?
Basically, we don't want to put the numbers if we can keep from it. What we submitted is what you see in that picture right there, not numbers on the top of it.
No, it does.
has numbers.
Yeah,
It has
it does have
numbers.
Oh, I
numbers.
know it does.
That's what we're approving.
Okay.
Yeah, and it has to have the numbers under our code.
On the sign itself? Mm-hmm. Okay, well, end of discussion.
So is it the same, will it be included in the panel? Is that one piece, or is that an additional panel?
It's a metal face, etched out, cut out, light will travel through it. So the 11205 will be lit like the orange.
Okay.
And, from the back side.
Okay.
So it's visible at night too.
Okay. All right, any other questions? All right,
Can I ask a question? You mentioned that you're thinking about some other signage, code changes, et cetera. Any idea how far out that is? I mean, are we within 3 months, We've had
7 meetings over the last 3 months, and I think it's getting pretty close to being finalized. I would say in the next 6 weeks, maybe.
Yeah, but then, it'll have to come back to this board, it'll have to go through the planning commission, and then it'll have to go to the board of mayor and aldermen and be passed. So it's probably
6
several
months
months.
away?
Well, no, but
Oh, less than that.
less than that, but,
Okay.
and actually you have an open permit request for the east side, so we're gonna just leave that open so that,
We'd obviously
if,
like to have a
yeah,
little arch over there if we could.
again, that's to put another arch up here.
facing the tire store.
Yeah, yep.
Otherwise, we have no signage on that side of the
All right,
Nothing on the driver's side.
all right.
building, either side. We have a front load.
Does anybody want to make a
We'll
motion?
make a motion that we approve based on subject twos number 2 and 3
Okay.
on our agenda.
What we are approving is the red sign,
Yeah, you're basically approving it as designed there.
As
backlit,
designed.
illuminated M, and the backlit that will protrude through the number.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, all right. And a second?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
All right, so we will go on to Caldwell Banker. And this is letter E.
This is a ground sign replacement for the Coldwell Banker, Wallace and Wallace Realtors at 10815 Kingston Pike. Actually, I got some revised artwork today via email, so I've put it into the PowerPoint. So the actual plan has been upgraded since you got your packets. They've also addressed.
If you care to see them.
Do we need copies? Are we good?
Monitors, but.
Is it just that one page?
Well, there's like three pages.
Yeah, why don't you just pass those out?
That's okay.
Yeah. How many are there?
No, we can.
Thank you.
It's the same
What's
pictures.
different on the other two pages?
Details.
There's a whole sign, a sign, and then
As I said, they're just basically replacing the face on an existing ground sign. It meets all our standards. Their revisions clarified all the points I needed clarified in terms of the subject twos, so we can recommend approval of it. That's what it'll look like. They added some landscaping. There's a landscaping sheet. It meets the minimum requirements. They're also changing out their wall signs, but that's a internal permit review.
All right.
The reason they're requesting is corporate change logos, and they ask them to change to conform with the new logo standards. That's the reason they did this. And by the way, I'm Gary Hayes, Neon Service, 4302 York Road. It's my address. Sorry about that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And are the existing numbers staying?
Yes,
Okay,
nothing's changed there.
okay.
Only thing that is changed is the face plates.
All right. Any questions, comments?
The only question, do we have any subject twos here? They've all been addressed, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah.
What is the height of those numbers?
8-inch numbers.
Just-
Yep.
Okay, yeah.
It's pretty straightforward. It looks like all we need to do is, it meets the requirements. There's nothing that's.
It's good. It meets the height requirement. It meets the area requirement for the setback. It's got the numbers at the top that meet our requirements. It meets the minimum number of shrubs that they're proposing, which is 4 for a sign this size.
And
So
it looks like some of those, are those already there, or are they planting those?
those are photoshopped in.
Oh, okay.
The bushes. It's just grass and dirt there
I got
now,
it.
but they
That's good.
photoshopped in the boxwoods.
I
Is
was
the,
like, are those there?
is the base the current base?
It is. And it matches the brick on the building.
Are you going to Photoshop the far left side?
Well, you can only see one side at a time. So
I'll make a motion that we approve it as is.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you very much.
okay, thank you all for your time.
Have a good night. All right, so we can go back to the beginning, what we skipped over. So the Overlook Apartments. So this is the returning one from last month.
Yep.
All
Okay.
right, looks like we have new art.
So this is an entrance sign for the Overlook Apartment Complex. They're on North Campbell Station Road. That's under construction. I'm sure you've all seen that. They're proposing a 30 square foot. It's a subdivision entrance sign, but but those signs can also be used for apartment complexes like this. It'll be 6 feet high. It was on your agenda last meeting. They were missing a fair bit, and you had some questions, so they've updated their plans. I think they've addressed everything that the board was concerned about at the last meeting. Here's a color rendering of the sign. It matches what they've got spec'd out here, and on the spec sheet, they call out that, the brick's going to match the building, the hardware is going to match what they're putting on their clubhouse building. So the color scheme and the materials they're using are all in line with what they're putting in the larger development. Here it is in a side profile showing both the setback and the height above the average grade. They also changed the landscaping. I think you were concerned about some of the plant material at the front of the sign, so they've changed that out. So I think they've addressed pretty much all the comments that the board had at the last meeting, and so staff can recommend approval, just subject to pretty standard notes there in terms of going out and field verifying the lights when they put them in. They're going to be small accent lights, which we have here, that'll be mounted on the sign. And then because the development's under construction, we'll have to get an as-built, and we'll have to verify that it's located outside of any easements or anything else that gets platted in there as part of the larger development. But they're aware of that. It's all noted on the plans as such. So subject to those two things, and with the understanding that we'll be getting an as-built as part of the overall development there, then staff can recommend approval.
Do we have a representative here?
I don't believe so.
Okay, we don't know what's going to be in that planter. It says seasonal color non-invasive species.
Yeah, which is fine. It's an enclosed planter. They're I'm sure they'll be putting out annuals in there.
They meet the requirements without the
Oh, yeah.
annuals in there, right?
Oh, yeah,
So that doesn't
yeah.
have to be,
Oh, they're way over the landscaping requirements for a sign like this.
I just wonder why they don't keep it clean, because what do they put in there? If it does get high enough, it might start blocking the sun. It just doesn't seem like it's needed, in my opinion, with all the landscaping around the base.
and most of those places put them in once or twice and then they
Stop
don't.
doing.
They don't.
That's, I guess, up to them. As long as it's nothing real tall, but. I don't have a problem.
Yeah, everything I think I had questions about last time was, all right?
Plant stuff down in here.
You all good? All right.
You know what? You're right.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve, subject to the field verification of the accent lights and that it's located outside of any easements and that the as-built survey is received.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Next on the agenda is the First Horizon Bank. First one for the ground-mounted sign.
Okay, this is a request to replace, again, the sign faces on a First Horizon Bank. I think at the last meeting, we looked at the ones that were up on Parkside. This is a different bank. This is the Kingston Pike Bank. They are just replacing the faces on the ground sign. They're using an existing base. it's pretty much the same sign you looked at last month, just at a different location. They've updated the plans. They have all the information on it that's required. Again, it's a replacement, so it's in the location that it is. There's already landscaping on the site, and staff can recommend approval of it.
Good motion to approve. It's the same as
Second.
we looked.
I'll
Any
second.
comments? Okay, all right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, moving on to the First Horizon Bank directional signs. And these, I think, are the same as last month as well?
Yeah, they're similar. They're putting them at the two entrances to the bank, so you can see them there at E13 and E14, and then they're at the entrances. They're
15 and 16.
going to be located here, 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 and here.
This is out there. This goes right across 13.
Yeah, it's on my mind.
Oh, it is, okay.
They're changing, basically they're changing out the whole sign. They're just going to a simple enter or exit as applicable in a blue corporate color. They meet all of our requirements in terms of area and height. And they also will be meeting all the setback requirements, which are 15 feet from the edge of pavement of roads and 5 feet edge of pavement on driveways and parking lot areas. So we can recommend approval of these as well.
All right, any comments? Questions? All right, motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
In a second.
Second. No.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. And moving on to the landscape plan for the new office building at 11807 Kingston Pike.
Whoops. Okay. This is a landscape plan for a new office building that's being built on the out parcel that's in front of the Old Ingalls Shopping Center, if you're familiar with that area. They're putting in a medical office. The site plan's been reviewed by the Planning Commission. It's been reviewed and approved by the Planning Commission already. So this is the landscaping plan for it. We've reviewed it. They made some changes to it and updated it, what we asked for, and it meets the town standards, so we can recommend approval of it. The one odd thing there is there's an existing detention basin on there that they are not dealing with. That's basically the whole front of that site. So we're not requiring them to landscape that basin. It's pre-existing. It's actually the responsibility, I think, of the larger development to maintain. But they did have requirements to put in trees and landscaping around the building and also within the parking lot that they're redeveloping.
Do we know if they have plans for a ground-mounted sign?
Not at this time.
Going forward, just so the committee knows, we're going to request that there is a ground-mounted sign that'd be part of this as well.
Well, that'll be part two of the site plans, hopefully going forward, that the Planning Commission reviews, at least in terms of location.
I'm trying to realize where it is.
Okay, it's
the Old Ingalls.
It's basically at the corner there of
Right along Boring
It's
Road.
Boring.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I see.
There are
I was trying to visualize.
It's a
where
parking
Yeah.
lot
on
that floods.
Parking lot it was going.
Far right.
Far right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, right now, this parking lot area is there, although they're redeveloping it, right? So this is sort of already on the site,
Right.
and this is just grass right now.
Okay.
Got it.
Building another building?
Yeah.
Right. Got somebody at the podium.
Why are they, may I ask a question? With all the empty buildings there in that old Ingalls Shopping Center, why are we building a new one?
That's,
I mean,
somebody bought it and someone wants to build an office building on it, so.
I think it's going to be a dentist office, and then I think they want to rent out some additional space
They don't want to pay
for
rent.
office,
They
other
wanna- they
additional,
wanna
no,
own their own
they're going to do it all, they're going to have it all?
Yes.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
Mark Filek, the civil engineer on the project, 1313 Cameo Road. Yeah, this is going to be a single tenant
Okay.
facility. And when we were in front of Planning Commission, I know I need to put this more in front of me. One of the biggest concern Planning Commission had was the amount of parking that we're showing. But there is a cross-access egress parking arrangement with the original center that we have to provide 6 spaces for every 1,000 square foot of building we build on it. So that's 24 spaces that, quote unquote, are not ours. Even though we can, if nobody parks in it, we can use it. But this is proposed to be a dental facility, and the floor plan that I've seen has 10 chairs in it. And if they have 10 chairs, just staffing alone is going to be approximately between 14 and 16 employees at this facility. That's why we have the sheer number of parking, and that's why we're also, the only spaces that will not be permeable pavers are the 6 that are against the north side of the building that go towards the center. Those will be asphalt. And the reason we're doing those in asphalt is because the current drainage sheet flows across to the east to that swale that goes down into the detention facility. All the rest of the parking will be permeable pavers, including the drive aisles. And that's another reason why we purposely have not put any landscaping in the basin, because as the pictures I have received from Mark Shipley while I was on my cruise 3 weeks ago, and y'all had that huge rain and that basin was overflowing into the parking lot. In fact, I've had multiple conversations with staff about that, and Lori Saul and them, and I've reviewed the existing pipe that runs underneath the entrance there at the traffic light. It's an existing 12-inch corrugated metal pipe that's in actually not bad shape. But that detention facility was built prior to the current ordinances, which allows you to only release a 10-year pre-developed rate to the 50-year storm, which is significantly less than what we could do with the new rates. But as we are not the managers of that detention, it's something we're inheriting. We do not want to touch it for the liability purposes of it. So, but we are putting permeable pavers, which should have been designed so that the water that sheet flows coming south off of the Ingalls that would normally go across our parcel into the front, the permeable pavers will take that water and infiltrate it within 48 hours up to the 100-year storm. So that should help some of the issues at that intersection there.
So basically, they're making no changes to the site
From that line forward,
from that line forward.
other than putting a sidewalk in the existing sidewalk easement that was dedicated prior to us, even the developers owning the property.
On
Which we
Kingston
also
Pike
have-
or on Boring Road?
Or both?
On both.
Both.
That's what I was going to say. Is it both?
Both
sides?
sidewalks. In fact, the one on Boring Road will tie to the sidewalk that's already existing going northbound, and it lines up exactly with it. And I've
And again-
coordinated with Daryl Smith for all the improvements along Kingston Pike per the town requirements.
And again, that's all been reviewed and by the planning commission.
So back to the landscaping part of this, and just kind of the flow. I live off of Boring Road, so I drive through all of the floods and all of
Yep.
that. And the houses in Village Green right there.
Yep.
And even where that sidewalk's going to go through,
Yes.
you see the tracks that are there, that the town tried to fill in once already and try to even that out a few years ago. I'm concerned with the trees and where they are. I saw 2 people out there trying to dig out the ditch after the last storm that went through and clean it out, so hopefully it wouldn't flood the next time it rained like it has. But, you know, if there's a sidewalk put in there and all of this improvements and pavers, I don't know what that does to this, and if we need to be careful of what kind of trees, what kind of foliage they let off each year and put into that detention basin, and then also on the other side where the neighborhood
Right.
is,
I
what the
understand.
flow
Yeah,
is.
right. And I understand. Yeah.
You know, and I think I hear you're inheriting part of it as well, but I think we really need to think about what trees and what kind of landscaping we're putting in and what long-term it's going to cause.
Well, according to your ordinance, because we are improving, and I don't remember the exact number, it's actually on the sheet there, it's about 20 to 30,000 square feet, we're required to plant 12 trees. Although we're removing 6 trees, and if you look, there's a schedule there that says the removal of trees amounts to replacement of 19, but the existing trees that will remain is a credit of 72 trees. But we're still having to plant 12 trees to meet the ordinance, and the developers are fine with that. If we could get a waiver to not have to plant all the trees along the eastern edge of the parking field, which will be dumping leaves into the same detention basin we're talking about, that would be a benefit, but I'm not going to ask for that waiver because we're not asking for any waivers on this.
And that's actually nothing that y'all could, I mean,
Yeah.
that would have to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals.
I understand.
I'm going to go back.
Now, whether or not you have a suggestion for species that, you know, would be less, you know, less in terms of dropping leaf litter, that's, you know, that's a different issue. But they you know, they did have a requirement to put a certain number of trees back on the site. Now, in terms of the storm drainage, like Mark was explaining, they're going to be putting in a permeable paver system. So they're probably, if anything, there'll probably be less stormwater runoff from that site than
Yes.
currently. Now, obviously, there's the whole rest of the, you know, the development, which is still contributing quite a bit of water. But in terms of what they're putting on this small out parcel, there'll probably be less runoff
Than what's
what there
currently
is
there.
right now.
Right.
Because if you look at it for what we're putting in that's permeable versus what's currently permeable on the property, we are probably 75% of what's permeable now. Even with the 4,000 square foot building and sidewalks and the portion that we are leaving as asphalt. So we're going to decrease the amount of impervious area, and the pavers across the western side there are designed to take the runoff from the parking lot from there up to the Ingalls, because it's currently draining there, and infiltrate it in the ground.
Are there, those trees that are there, are there a certain list of trees that are for around detention basins for?
Well,
kinda,
you know,
as called it, the leaf
again,
litter?
we didn't really review this plan from the standpoint of what would normally be required for landscaping for a detention basin, because the detention basin exists, and they're really doing nothing to it because it's in an existing easement. So the only requirements we looked at in terms of this landscaping plan were, you know, the amount of landscaping that has to go in around the building, the square footage, which they're well above, and then the number of trees that needed to be planted, well, the number of shade trees that needed to be planted based on the disturbed area, and that's all we looked at. So we did not, you know, look at the typical certain number of trees per linear foot around the top elevation of a detention basin, because you know, they're not really impacting that portion of the site.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you for explaining that.
My pleasure.
I'm just curious if you figured out where you're going to put your ground mounted sign if you put one in there?
We haven't even started discussion yet. I don't know if we're even going to have a ground mount sign.
Sure, with one building.
Well, they probably couldn't put it in the detention
No.
basin
We can't
easement,
put it
so
along Kingston Pike unless we stick it in one of the islands out front, but we can't even do that in our parking field because we have a sidewalk that goes through as a requirement to, as part of the site plan, to provide access all the way to Kingston Pike.
So will it be on your building? I mean, how will people?
They haven't, I'm not, signage is not something I have to worry about. That's, I've got enough problems just trying to get everything done that I have on my plate. I try to avoid signage like the plague. Nothing personal,
Got you.
but I try to avoid that. That's somebody else's problem, not mine.
Again, I don't know if you heard me earlier, but going forward, if we approve the new sign ordinance, or when we approve it, it's going to have something in there saying that we'd like to have a sign shown on the landscape drawing.
I understand.
All right. Any other comments, questions?
None.
Motion for approval? Anybody have a motion for approval?
A motion to approve.
All right, a second.
I second it.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right,
Thank you all.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I think that's all the items, except on other business. Bart, you had on there the proposed sign ordinance revisions?
A quick note on that. The Planning Commission had a workshop session on the proposed revisions to the sign ordinance at its last meeting last Thursday. You all will probably be seeing that at your next meeting, hopefully, as we continue to clean up the language. Hopefully the presentation won't be quite as long as the one at the Planning Commission, but we'll see. I know Randy and Brittany were both there, so.
Yeah, well, we were.
And so-
we may
and
get
so was Ron,
a hall
actually,
pass
so,
if we
yeah.
go into deep discussion on this in the future.
So I just want to let you know that we are closing in on getting that revision done, and so you'll probably be seeing it at the next meeting.
All right. Anything else?